Which is better, an aero bike or an all-around / climbing bike? Or which is faster, a Canyon Aeroad or a Canyon Ultimate? I realize that I'm probably one of the few people other than the pro teams that are sponsored by Canyon who actually owns and regularly rides both of these bikes, so I thought I'd offer my comments on what are ultimately the very subtle differences between the two. So on my right here is a Canyon Aeroad CF SLX 8.0 Di2 model year 2017, and on my left here is a Canyon Ultimate CF SLX 8.0 Di2 model year 2020. One of the most immediate differences that people see in these two bikes is the weight difference. Out of the box, the Aeroad weighed 7.22 kilograms, while this Ultimate weighed 6.85 kilograms. So that's a 370 gram difference. It's important to note though that the older version of Ultegra 6870 that is on this bike actually weighs about 100 grams more than the newer version 8050 that came on the Ultimate. So the actual difference in the bikes for someone considering them today would probably be something closer to 250 grams. Of that 250 grams though, about 200 grams of the difference is just in the wheels alone, the stock wheels that came on these bikes. So the Reynolds Strike 62 millimeter carbon wheels with what were Continental Grand Prix 4000 tires originally on the Aeroad were about 200 grams heavier than the stock Reynolds AR41 with Schwalbe Pro 1 TLE tires that came on the Ultimate. So once you take the wheels aside, you can see that in the seat and the frame on these two bikes that you're actually talking about a 50 to 70 gram difference, so really nothing. So what are the differences between the two bikes? Well, from looking at them, you can see that the tube shapes are visibly different. One, there's this fairing on the back here that's supposed to make airflow around the front of the back wheel that's not found on the Ultimate. The tube shapes on the Aeroad are longer and thinner, supposedly more aerodynamic, and the seat stay looks a little bit more dropped on that, and the top tube is flatter. You can see that the difference between the seat and the top tube on this, even though the saddle height is obviously the same, is about 4 centimeters more than on this bike, so pretty significant. The tube shapes on the Ultimate, they say, were aero optimized, so there's some sort of flattened cam tail to them. So aerodynamics were a consideration, just probably not as much as on this bike. Both of them have integrated cockpits that within the same size should have been the exact same dimensions. So if you were getting a small, both of these would be a 90 millimeter stem on a 390 millimeter width bars, for example. The key dimensions that would affect the fit of the bike, if you look on Canyon's website, I don't have things that would accurately measure such things, but those key dimensions meaning the seat tube angle, the steering tube angle, the top tube length, the chainstay length, they're actually either identical or pretty close to each other as long as you're staying within the same size on both of these bikes. So there actually shouldn't be a really big fit difference between the two. So there's a several 100 gram weight difference, visible difference in the tube shapes and theoretically the aerodynamics, but really no significant difference in the geometry of the two bikes. So what's the difference in how they ride? Well, that's where the surprises really came in for me. One of the only differences between these two that I have to caveat though is that the Aeroad is a size small, and then I downsized to an extra small when I was getting the Ultimate. Part of that was because I always felt like my hands could have come back a little bit on the Aeroad, be a little bit more comfortable, and I also I just thought it could be a little bit more appropriate once I was better understood bike fitting. The surprises though were that on downhills, where I was getting a lot of downhill PRs after having had this bike for several years, was with the Ultimate. So a lighter weight, theoretically less aerodynamic bike was getting PRs on downhills. I thought that was really surprising, and my initial reaction was that this must be the all-around faster bike. This is the ultimate bike I've been looking for. It's going to be so much better. But I was getting this bike because I wanted performance gains on climb segments. The main thing that I go after, the thing that all of my training is geared towards, that I try to optimize the bikes for, is chasing Strava segments up hills. So anything from the short, steep, 10-15%, 2-minute hill to the little bit longer 5 to 7%, 20-25 minute hill. It's all the same, and I thought the same kind of bike would be optimal for both. Well, that's where the surprises really came in. The heavier, more aerodynamic bike so far seems faster in all of those climb conditions than the lighter weight, less aerodynamic bike. I don't notice any stiffness difference. They're both very stiff frames, and the components, of course, are about the same. And I frequently ride them both with not the stock wheels. I have different upgrade wheels, both a lighter but aluminum rim brake, alloy brake set of wheels for wet conditions or something like that, or really, really steep descents. And then I also have another kind of medium depth, higher performance, what I think are probably better bearings than both of these wheels. So I'm actually even factoring that out of there, that it's the same wheels, same clothing, same helmets, a lot of different things, and the Aeroad is faster. So I've done comparisons on Strava to see over some of these longer climb segments where I was actually gaining or losing time. And while I would have expected that the slightly lighter bike was pulling ahead on the steeper parts, and then maybe losing ground on the flatter parts, it was really the Aeroad that was doing the exact same on the steeper parts, but then everywhere that the gradient would ease off to 2% or 0% or even go downhill, I would just grab a couple of seconds on the Aero bike. So what that means is that the little bit of weight difference, 300 grams as I actually ride them, so with all the upgrades that have been done, there's a 300 gram difference between the two, is that the aerodynamic benefits of the Aeroad seem to be outdoing the Ultimate. When you try to conceptualize, well, wait, 300 grams is a lot, shouldn't that be going faster uphill? Actually not. So even if you're going so slow that the only factor you're dealing with is your power to weight, if you're doing 5 watts a kilo, then that's 0.3 kilos, so it's 1.5 watts is the only difference that you're getting from that, what seems significant weight savings. If you're doing a punchier climb at 10 watts a kilo, it's still only 3 watts, which is nothing in the scope of either the total power that you're putting or the different optimizations you could have between keeping your chain clean, is your tire pressure optimal for the surface that you're on that day, how clean are the bearings, like all these sort of things. So I think that the aero benefits of the shape of the Aeroad are probably just a few watts faster than the Ultimate, which is what makes them about equal at these kind of slower speeds that you would traditionally see in climbing. But then as soon as the speed lifts up, so if it starts having a little bit less gradient and you're going 30 kilometers an hour, 18 miles an hour, that's when I'll grab a couple seconds on this one. So performance-wise, it's a measurable difference. On a 20-minute climb, for example, I'm kind of counting on the Aeroad being maybe 5 or 10 seconds faster. So is it huge? No, it's still down to a couple watts difference between the two, but I'm still tipping the hat to this one. As far as explaining why I'm faster on downhills on this bike, I think that that's actually coming down to comfort. Some things are really simple, such as the bar tape on this bike is not quite as soft as the bar tape on this bike. It feels like it's a smoother ride. I think there's a little bit more flex in the seat tube on this, which makes it less bumpy. These tires are a little bit more supple. And I think that maybe just having my hands 2 centimeters closer to me on the Ultimate maybe affects my weight distribution or specifically the weight on the front wheel in a way that makes me a little bit more confident on the Ultimate than I am on the Aeroad. That's especially more true in the rare events where I've been using these deeper rims to go into the mountains. These Reynolds Strikes, I have had a lot of problems with crosswind stalls that will make your handlebars kind of go like that if there's a wind gust or a car passes you or something. So if you're not confident, you're going to brake more and you won't go as fast downhill. So that's why that one ends up being faster, even though performance-wise it shouldn't be. So the bottom line here is that the differences between these two bikes are very, very subtle. The fit is going to be much more important. So I think that if I had the exact same fit on these two, this would be simply faster all around. But because my fit is maybe a little bit better on this one, as far as weight distribution goes, I'm faster downhills. But otherwise, there are really not big differences between these. Nobody should really get hung up on a few hundred grams. It doesn't mean that much, regardless of how little you weigh or how much power you put out. It's just not that meaningful. So they're both great bikes. They're both very fast. But I think this one's just a little bit faster.